they would be somewhat elongated.
Cool. So, Lockie, I know that you're motivated and excited by superlatives, and this might be the most impactful or important sentence that I read in studying philosophy.
That's cool.
Yeah. And for some background context, it comes from Bertrand Russell, who was a philosopher around the 20th century and was likely one of the most important public intellectuals of the time. He won the Nobel Prize in Literature, and one of the books that was cited as part of that award was a book called A History of Western Philosophy, which is where this quote comes from. And one of the reasons that I like the quote is because it's in a niche place. Like, you have to look for it. It's not in the introduction. It's not in the preface. It's not at the conclusion of an important philosopher. It's at the beginning, from memory. It's at the beginning of like chapter 3, to do with a pre-Socratic philosopher called Heraclitus. So anyway, here's the quote. In studying a philosopher, the right attitude is neither reverence nor contempt, but first a kind of hypothetical sympathy, until it is possible to know what it feels like to believe in his theories, and only then a revival of the critical attitude, which should resemble as far as possible the state of mind of a person abandoning opinions which he has hitherto held. So the way that I read that was, you don't have the right to criticize a philosopher until you've understood them well enough that you could almost be a proponent of that school of philosophy. And I just took that further to be like, I don't feel that I have the right to criticize anything that I don't feel that I don't feel like fully understand to a point where I would be a proponent of the thing. So you don't get to criticize the Bible unless you know what it's like to read the Bible as a devout Christian. And you don't get to criticize Marx until you've read him well enough that you love Marxian theory, or you know what it would feel like to love that theory. And for me, what actually ended up happening was that the second part never came. I just never became critical, which maybe is not the best. But what I found is that for me personally, there's just so much gold to be mined in, for instance, trying to understand Marx and where he was coming from, or reading the Bible. And it never then occurred to me, okay, now I have to criticize it. You kind of take what vibes with you, and then move on and read something else.
Yeah.
So.
Nice. So previously were these two things that you thought you might be critical of, and so you wanted to understand them deeper?
Oh, those were just examples. I think a better example of something that I was critical of that I then took seriously was like self-help. I was pretty like automatically critical without really knowing anything about it. So then I just forced myself to I think read Tony Robbins or something, or Dale Carnegie or something. And then I was like, hey, there's stuff here. I don't maybe agree with all of it, but there's stuff here. Same with the Bible. It's there's stuff here. Same with Buddhist philosophy, Hinduism. Marx has interesting things to say about identity that I didn't realize before reading him. But yeah, I think I probably just have an innate curiosity where one of my colleagues said, I don't think I've ever heard you give a critical remark. And I said to her, I first reflected on that, and then I said, look, That's I just don't see that as my role. We talked in, I think it was maybe even episode 1, about how the way that I think about balance these days is more about like you can get natural balance by being surrounded by people who are kind of opposite to you in certain ways. So there's going to be a ton of critical people. You don't have to worry about that. If you want criticism, don't ask me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. I feel like it stimulates being your unique self. Having someone like you where you don't feel... well, you can tell you something and then you'll just... it's not like you'll withhold
Yep.
ideas of like, well, that could be better with this, or what about that? But
yeah.
Yeah,
that's maybe actually more the way that I think about it, that I'm not critical. I just will offer an opposing opinion. It's not a criticism, but it's like, have you thought about this as well?
Yeah. Seems to be a more tactful way to be, and maybe even ultimately helpful, I think. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it depends on the person, but yeah, I think, like, for instance, one of the things that's nice about the podcast is like one of us will just take the opposite, be devil's advocate, because that's the best way to get a discussion going. And that for me, I find it really sad when people just discount certain opinions unthoughtfully.
Yeah. Why do you think they do that?
I mean, there's lots of different reasons to do that, but I think one thing is, and I think I learnt this from a TED talk or something on cognitive dissonance. Like, the guy's argument was that a lot of religious wars start because it's easy to just eliminate the other point of view. If you have a strongly held belief, and then somebody has an equally strongly held belief that would negate your beliefs, it's easier to simply eliminate that person and those opinions. So, yeah, I feel like it's easier to ridicule somebody that has an opposing viewpoint than to take them seriously.
So maybe it's the lazier way.
I think it's lazy.
Things. Yeah.
I think we talked about the other day, like, how for me, one of the things that I really admired about Jordan Peterson, like early on in his career before he got involved in all the woke stuff, but just I really liked how he seemed to take in a point of view of like, what's the goal to be mined in the Bible and in religious texts from an atheistic point of view. I think that's more difficult to do. Yeah, and he's quite radical in his. I think he says something like, I act as though God exists, which is basically believing in God, I think. But yeah, being so open to. Yeah, I think it, like, yeah, as you say, it is lazy to just discount an opinion or an alternative point of view. It takes a lot of work to be like, okay, how could this be right? To steelman the argument. Yeah, and I've always found that that's the best approach in teaching, is like, if you ask a question and then the student answers it not quite right, the best thing to do is to try and find how they're a little bit right, to encourage what they got right rather than to point out everything that they got wrong. That's just another way of doing it, to focus on the positive. And then I always find that it's easier for the student to expand into the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, rather than being like, no, this is where you're wrong.
Yeah. Going back to the point of like the laziness of not even considering, like just discounting it straight away. The fact that maybe for myself personally, the only time I would do that is if the person for some reason has like lost my trust or respect, and then because then it seems with that information, it's not. Well, yeah, it's likely Do you know what I mean? It's likely to somehow maybe be yeah, just I'm trying to think of the word at the moment. Like negative, you know, intentionally damaging or something like that.
Yeah.
Malicious, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it made me, in what you said, it just made me realize about how, I'm actually quite selective with who I'll listen to. I take in a broad number of perspectives, but yes, there are some people that I just won't listen to because I'm like, that's an unthoughtful person in my history with them.
Yeah.
And there are just other people that have been more thoughtful. So you may as well pay attention to those people more because you've got to divest your attention somehow. But yeah, I will try and, like a Jordan Peterson, I'll try and look for somebody who I think has thought things through clearly on something that I have a default criticism towards or negativity towards.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll try and find the best person that I think appeals to me most.
Yeah.
On that subject.
Yeah, the source matters.
Oh yeah, source matters.
Yeah. I'm curious, just thought then, is there a way for someone that you don't currently you won't listen to for a various reason, how would they earn that back, you know? I'm curious. I know it might be different in each situation, but in general, perhaps.
It's funny. Yeah, this is something that I struggle with actually, because I think that while I'm open to opinion or I'm open to perspectives, I'm probably quite I have a short temper for if somebody's, you know, especially if you say malicious. I mean, that's it's very difficult to earn my trust back.
Yeah.
Because there's if you're somebody that's how do I say it? If you're somebody that's broken my trust, well, there's 7 billion other people that haven't done that.
Yeah.
So I might as well go to those people. But what that does mean is that it is, you know, maybe I can be unforgiving. So it's interesting because in my personal life, I just find that I don't know, the people that are in my inner circle are all just very thoughtful and sensitive. So it's that kind of thing has never happened to anybody in my inner circle.
Yeah, I'm more thinking for I'm imagining maybe someone made a mistake that and not even necessarily with you or with me, but just to someone they care about, maybe, you know.
Yeah.
And they feel like that. Yeah, you know, you can probably tell if you cross a certain threshold, maybe, and then someone's not really listening to you, which by its own nature makes it difficult to then earn back because they won't even listen to, you trying to mend things. So yeah, I don't know. Just thinking about it.
Well, in my previous relationship, what I started doing more was almost like a hypothetical sympathy, where I would choose to think about their actions with the best intentions. Yeah, how would this be a manifestation of their best intentions that didn't land well for me? So to begin with that, so that's the conceptual, intellectual bit of it. Then if that was enough, that the feelings of hostility passed, the thing that they did annoyed me, then if I did this trick of okay, let's readjust my mind to be how could this have been innocent, essentially, and then if that satisfies me, cool. If it doesn't, if the next day, for instance, I'm still annoyed, I'll just go why did you do that, kind of thing. And then we'll have a discussion about it.
Does that also perhaps build a concern, though? I feel like if I can understand, and most of the time I can, why someone might do something, and how they may have thought it would be
Mm-hmm.
good. But if in the case that it bothers you, upsets you, makes things difficult for you, that seems like a different wavelength kind of
Mm-hmm.
situation. You know what I mean? Which is almost that's difficult, right? Because I feel like if that keeps happening, then
Exactly.
it doesn't seem like a good fit, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is kind of upsetting, but reality, right?
I think I was there was a couples counselor or something that was saying that whatever disputes come up within the first couple weeks or couple months, those are the ones that are going to continue for the rest of the relationship. And so if you break up, it'll be because of the things that were there early.
Mm-hmm.
And if you stay together, the things that you bicker about will be the things that were there early. Because you just have a fundamentally different way of viewing things.
Makes sense.
So you have to simply pick your problems. I mean, there's not going to be a person where there's no problems. So you have to pick your problems. Yeah, I think, the danger of like readjusting your point of view to be like, how could this be from the best intentions type of thing, is because it might be a little bit naive. Like maybe they didn't have good intentions.
Yeah.
It's just that for me, that's useful. It's a useful trick so that I don't feel so hostile towards them.
Yeah.
And
I like it. I think I'm the same.
But then the second thing is like, you have to go and like get the truth. Like it's almost like the hypothetical sympathy thing, where it's like, first you try and adopt hypothetical sympathy, and then later you adopt a critical attitude. So once you know what it would feel like to do what they did with the best intentions, then to actually confront them and be like, was that the real? What was the reality behind that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, it's a really nice mechanism. Like I think
you outline it to them.
Yeah.
Here's what I think you were thinking when you did it.
No, actually, I just go, why did you do that? Because
okay.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
Affect their thinking.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just, I don't tell them.
Yeah. Maybe after.
Yeah, maybe after.
Yeah. Similar to that, I always try to assume the best.
Yeah.
For most things, because I feel like often assumptions and that
exactly.
make it so. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like
if you assume bad things about people, they'll sense that, and then they'll not be pleased, and then maybe they will do those. They'll make things not go that well. Exactly. And the other way around, you may be able to surprise people with your naivete, which I value. And maybe make them want to rise to that expectation, I think. Yeah. It's a good way to be. Yeah.
Are there any are there any opinions that you think don't deserve sympathy?
Oof, that's a good question. I don't know if I'll be able to think of it, but I feel like there probably would be some. Maybe very, very few though. But I mean, but I guess I would also only make that judgment after trying to be sympathetic toward those opinions, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. But it seems like there's certain things about like killing, for example. Yeah. I would like to think probably it's never really a good, like to think that that's okay and a good solution. So maybe like really fundamental things like that. It's very difficult though. I'm sure there are, even in that sense, difficult opinions that kind of make sense in some ways. But maybe those fundamental values, maybe if it's like something that contradicts like one of your most fundamental values, then perhaps.
Perhaps, yeah. Even then, only perhaps, yeah.
Yeah. How about you? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I really like your answer. I think that's very thoughtful, and I think I would agree with your approach. That I always first want to... Yeah, I think that, oftentimes when somebody's done something quite horrific, you just have to look at their childhood. And then it's like, okay, that makes sense. Again, doesn't make it excusable. I think I might have said that in a previous podcast. But it does make it understandable.
Yeah.
So that nobody's like born a monster, I don't think. Plato said that people act wrongly only out of ignorance. That they think that they're doing the right thing and they simply don't know what they're doing is wrong. So it's interesting. Like once I started to take this concept quite seriously, a lot of kind of that base level hostility that you feel towards like people that you think are monstrous or whatever kind of faded away for me. And I did feel more sympathy towards them. And so I think that all ideas deserve sympathy. All opinions deserve sympathy.
Yeah. Maybe at least initially.
Yeah. This is so. There's like a 2-step process, right? Where it's like you first meet them with openness, kindness, compassion.
Yeah.
And then later we're like, okay, but seriously.
Yeah. Then you could have a. Well, yeah. You must do that to truly give it a chance, right? Whatever that view is.
I think so.
And then you can maybe think more critically about it and discuss that. Yeah.
That's what I believe. Just makes me think about, children, how when they're doing quote unquote the wrong thing, they're often met first with discipline, not first with sympathy. Hey, what are you doing there? That's wrong.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I notice that a lot actually.
Yeah, it's a bit. I find it quite sad.
Yeah, and I certainly never. I always try and do the opposite.
Yeah,
I find the kids really appreciate it as well when.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they. Yeah.
Because a child that is acting out oftentimes is just seeking attention.
Yeah. Yeah, I also like it in the sense that, I mean, obviously some things are not desirable, but often it can be like innovative, like, why are you doing that? That's interesting. That's different.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I guess for a lot of kids, like they have to do all these activities that they don't know they don't like it, or they don't know what they like, so they'll do a whole bunch of things, and if it's something that they're not really naturally suited to, then it kind of makes sense that they might be like that. But maybe by having that sympathy, you can realize, oh, well, if that's what you want to do, or that's how you feel about this thing, maybe that other thing might be well suited, rather than just saying, no, don't do that, do this.
Yeah, so that, that's an attitude that carries, like that does not stop at childhood. I mean, that basically continues.
Yeah, the discipline rather than sympathy, you mean?
Yeah. To the point where I find that it's sometimes difficult to know how you truly feel about something, because your brain internalizes that, okay, if I go here, there are negative consequences, so then I'm not going to go there anymore. So you stop thinking about becoming an actor and becoming an astronaut and becoming a filmmaker, and you start to kind of live into the bounds of the discipline-riddled world. And, to a certain extent, it's necessary, because we don't want criminals running around. But, the thing that you lose is maybe a bit of authenticity and freedom of mind. So that, I think when we talked about careers and stuff in a previous podcast, it was like, okay, what do you really want to do, regardless of what you think is prudent? And then we'll see if we can make that prudent.
Yeah.
Because, a child acting out might just, so if they want attention, maybe they should be an actor or something. Or if they're acting out and super energetic, maybe they need to get that energy out in some fashion.
Even to go deeper, I would say, if you want attention, then become excellent at something.
Huh?
You know, that's a positive way of getting attention, as opposed to bothering and upsetting people. Yeah. Because if they deeply want it, then, you know, that's probably what I would say. You know, do you like whatever we're doing? If it is, well, if you actually just keep working on this, you'll get attention by getting exceptionally good at this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe the problem with that, though, is you become the person that you think you need to be in order to get approval.
Yeah. The fact that they want attention, maybe we should look into why that is.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. Let's look into that. I mean, because everybody needs attention. So, but you don't need it from millions of people. You know, I don't think. Anyway. So yeah, like I think it's appropriate to kind of look deeply into that. Yeah, and then to figure out, okay, cool. Now that we know that, how do we address it?
Yeah. It's interesting that we both have the same, independently arrived at yet sympathetic view towards most things. In that I try not to judge things. I find that it's probably harder for me to get angry at people than other people find, because I always first, maybe I feel the frustration, but then I'll try and quickly understand how the person would have come to thinking that that's the right way to go, or you know, and then I pretty much every single time can figure out something that makes sense to me as to why they would do that.
Yes.
And then I'm not as, you know, you can't really, it's hard to be angry when you can understand, right? So, yeah.
I think Michelle Obama said it's really difficult to hate up close.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting we both have that. Yeah. Where do you think that comes from, that we both arrived at that?
I think that oftentimes it's these kinds of dispositions are a mixture of temperament and practice. So for me, temperamentally, I'm conceptually open, like we've talked about before, but I'm just high in openness. So I don't really take any credit for that. That's just how I was made. But then I traveled a lot when I was a kid. We did a lot of travel, and so I just saw a lot of different cultures and different kinds of people. And I think I was exposed very early on to, we talked about maybe in the last podcast about how with the English language, for instance, if you never get exposed to another language, you might think that these are hard and fast rules of how you structure society or how you structure reality. And then you find, okay, in Japanese, they do a totally different thing. So that's actually not hard and fast. And so you begin to question things that seem to be fundamental. I think for me, traveling around a lot when I was a kid, you just see like, okay, these people are equally happy, equally prosperous. They're living their lives in a totally different way with a different set of beliefs. So therefore, it's not that you need a certain set of beliefs in order to live a good life or whatever, but all of those beliefs are malleable and negotiable. So I think, I had that kind of experience, and then coming back to studying philosophy and even studying law, where you are encouraged to, we would argue a case, and then next week we would have to argue the opposite case. So training an ambivalent, or ambidextrous way, where you have to, and in philosophy, oftentimes when you're writing an essay, you have to talk about the person and then talk about their strongest critic, and then come up with a synthesis that kind of combines them in a really neat package. So for me, it's something that I've trained at, but it's also something that I've just been exposed to naturally. Yeah. What about you, man?
I don't think I've from what I've studied in that at school and uni, hasn't really been in that vein of like you, where it's more maybe intellectual.
What about your parents? Do you think your parents are quite open?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe my dad more so than my mum, because mum's very strong opinions on things. Dad probably a bit less so. Yeah. Maybe I have to think about that more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe naturally. I think when I was younger, I did like to try to think about how people feel about things, just as a natural thing.
Me too.
And maybe I found that interesting. And I guess by just doing that, well, then you naturally think, oh, well, that they must think this, you know? And then even if that's different to how you think, it builds sympathy, I guess. That seems like it. I remember, I don't know, I feel like I might have been like year 5 or 6, and for whatever reason, I just find it interesting and fun to think about how someone might be thinking and feeling about something.
Me too, man.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's before we traveled. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't...
Yeah.
Maybe another point that it's interesting, man, because I don't really take credit for this.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because then I don't really think you can take credit for anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, as I said, like a lot of it is temperament, and then a lot of it is just experiences. So then the opposite side of that is like, okay, that person became a pedophile. That's, so I can't take credit for not being a pedophile. You know, like it's their temperament and their experiences. And one way to think about it is, if you had their body and their mind, you'd do the same thing. It's only by luck that you don't have their body and mind.
Yeah. So be more sympathetic to pedophiles.
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean, as in, well, but actually, honestly, like how to help them so that they act in an acceptable way. Yeah. Which is very difficult to think about how that.
That's right. It's difficult. Yeah, that's like quite a horrific thing to be, and so it's like it is very jarring to think, hey, that could be me. No, that's them. That's got nothing to do with me. No.
You're just lucky.
Yeah, you're just lucky.
Yeah.
You don't get to be pompous now because you weren't born that way. And so it gave me a lot of sympathy for people that have those urges and don't act them out, because I'm sure there are tons of those people as well. Yeah.
So people with more like willpower or discipline or
something.
Yeah.
Might have done the work to address whatever the need is. I imagine that would be incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Really difficult.
Yeah. Because that'd be repressing a part of themselves, which is definitely a good thing to repress, but
yeah,
it's funny how I like to think, be your whole self, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But you can't, those people cannot do that. That's difficult.
This is something that Aristotle talks about. He says something like, show me the boy at 7 years old and I'll show you the man. So he had this idea that it's really important to ingrain like good values at a young age, because that's how they will manifest later on. So yeah, man, like whenever I see kids or whatever, I'm just like, I feel protective of it. Like I'm just like, I hope things are going well.
Yeah. Hope you're being nurtured.
Yeah, I hope you're being nurtured. Yeah.
No, me too, man. Me too. Yeah.
But yeah, like we often take credit for things that we're just lucky for. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And so the flip side of that is like, don't cast the first stone. as Jesus said, you know. Even, you remember, I brought up a biblical reference in one of the podcasts, and then I was like, are people now going to dismiss me as being Christian or religious? Or
Yeah.
it's like, no, I just read books.
Yeah. 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 Even that would be interesting, because if they dismissed you, then that's a total lack of sympathy in judging based on one comment. I mean, that's making a lot of assumptions already. But even then, you know, people can... I'd like to think I'm sympathetic enough, absolutely, to like, you know, this person thinks that thing, I don't really agree with that. But a lot of the other stuff is,
right,
you know, and I can distinguish that and still respect them. You know, it'd be crazy if you...
Right.
I mean, that's kind of almost impossible to disagree on one thing and therefore everything is, you know, that's...
But I feel like that happens, that especially in probably even more in America, there's like an identity politics game that's played where it's like, are you on the left or the right?
Yeah.
And if you're on the right, then you believe in the entire canon of things that, you know, you're not allowed to disagree. If you're a right person, you agree with 100% the canon.
Yeah, it's not very... An interesting question to put to them would be, you know, if you disagree with your partner on one thing, does that mean that it's like over?
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Hopefully they would say no.
Depends on what it is, right?
Yeah, true. One interesting thing, so about the quote you raised at the start there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. I also liked... because that almost, like we've spoken about, was the natural thing for me was, yes, don't judge or like criticize until you kind of you have given it a chance and really deeply understood the thing. But on the flip side, how he says also to not let reverence influence you in that way.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
That's
to think about.
Yeah, because he was basically saying like, look, you're gonna encounter some philosophers in this book that you've heard their name and you already think you know. Like Marx is a good example where people like that guy's a communist, and then it's like how many of those people that dismiss Marx have ever read Marx? And like I'm talking about ever, and certainly not to a level where they could be a proponent of Marxist theory.
Yeah, which
I think is the level.
Yeah.
Which, you know, just looking at it from an outside perspective is just so obvious, because it's like you don't have the right to criticize something that you don't understand. I mean, that should not need to be said.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, you know, remarkably rare to have taken your opponent's point of view so seriously that you could be a proponent.
Yeah, that'd be a nice world, hey, where like
no,
there's very few people that criticize, and those that do, you're like, well, I know that guy's done his research, so I'll listen to what he has to say. That'd be nice. Yeah,
cool. I was going to ask you how you thought the world would be different if we embraced hypothetical sympathy.
Okay.
But
well, I think there'd be way less hate.
Yes.
Hopefully less like conflict and
yes.
Probably more innovation as well.
That's for sure.
Yeah. I wonder how that would affect crime and things like that. Because when you said before, like, I can't remember who it was. So you said some philosopher says like no man thinks he's doing wrong.
Right,
it's ignorance. Plato. Yeah. I mean, I agree with it a little bit. Maybe like deeply they think ultimately my actions, even though these actions might be wrong, it's leading to the right thing. So I'm just, like, I was thinking of gangsters and you know, those kind of guys. Obviously they know like these actions are illegal or whatever, and
yes,
you know, this is wrong, but then they probably think, but I care about my family.
Yes,
I'm doing this for them.
Yes.
And I get like that in its alone is good, like
yes,
valuing family, you know.
Yeah.
So, but they know that they're doing the wrong thing at a low level, right? Yeah. Yeah. How do we, to continue on that question of what would the world be like, how do we get more people to be hypothetically sympathetic. Can we make that happen?
Well, I think we are in this small way.
With this podcast, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, just by talking about it and also acting it out and being like, as I said, like when you think about, for me, it's like when you think about it, that's obviously correct.
So,
that you don't have the right to criticize something that you don't understand.
Yes.
That's just obviously correct.
Yeah.
And then, so that's just from an intellectual point of view. And
it's
then
a nice quote as well. You don't have the right to criticize something you don't understand. Because it's quite short.
Yes.
Maybe we should put that up at bus stops and things.
I could just imagine the amount of hate that would get. And it's just like it's such an innocent thing to say.
That's so ironic.
Don't tell me about my rights, So yeah, on an intellectual level, I think that's just obvious. But then on an emotional level, as we talked about, it's been really useful for me to... sometimes your partner does something that's annoying, and then it's just nice to be like, well, how could this have been because they were a sweetheart? And they were just incorrect. Like they didn't do it out of malice. Don't attribute to malice what you can attribute to ignorance.
I was just thinking maybe a lot of people are too busy. Because we're fortunate in that we're just very fortunate in so many ways. One of them being we have time, and we've kind of made it so our lives that we have time, and we're not like under the pump 24/7 doing whatever someone tells us to do. But for those people that maybe at least feel like they don't have the ability to, they have to go work and then they have to go to this thing and then they have to go help their family or whatever, and they feel like they have no time, I can understand how that might be harder for them to take the time to critically think about certain things, deeper, rather than just discounting, because if you have no time at all, you kind of have to maybe discount that's wrong, without truly understanding the thing, and they just maybe simply don't have the time, because if they did, then they wouldn't be able to work or, so maybe that's part of it too. And how maybe modern society is pushing people to be more busy in a way.
There you go. That's good. Nice. No, well, I suppose that for me though, man, it's like, I don't it's complicated, this time thing, because I'm part of me skeptical of it, just because I believe that you prioritize what you think is meaningful. So for me, if I don't think I have the time to do a good job, I just don't do it. Yeah.
And by that, you'll often just say no to the thing, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and it means that my life is quite sparse. In a good way. I like it, but it's really good that you brought up the thing about time, because that's something that I just realized when you said it. It's like I probably do judge people for not taking the time, but it's because I have the time. On the other hand, I have made sacrifices to have that time.
Yeah. And maybe at some point you had the time to think about the fact that time is important. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
But that's good to think about, because it's like, I probably, without thinking about it, was taking credit for the fact that I thought things through. I just said earlier that you're not really allowed to take credit. So that actually is very nice, because now I feel more sympathetic towards people who haven't thought their positions all the way through. There is something nice about belonging to a tribe of people who believe the things that you believe and agree with you and support you. And it is nice to feel that there's a bedrock of beliefs that you can rely on, if only with social proof of everybody else in my social circle believes in this, therefore it's more likely to be true. And even if it's not true, it's more likely that I can rely on it and be a proponent of it without being attacked. I can see that.
And often you're born into that, or
yeah,
just of convenience where you live, or so yeah. I was trying to think. So I'm trying to think of a busy person. It's probably someone with like dependent kids, because that would take up a lot of time, and then having to work full time. Maybe like the classic like full-time worker that has a family. I was even thinking like before, like what if it's like the guy that has to walk 3 hours to get to school, like a less fortunate person in a third world country. But I just thought, well, you got 3 hours when you're walking, you could be thinking about things. Is that slack? I think it's
not slack.
Yeah, it's almost like a good time to reflect about stuff. So, and also like my hopeful nature is like, okay, well then how do we help people have more time, or like,
that's right.
or how do we help people understand it's important to have that time to think about things, the value of that.
Yeah, man. Like, I'm hopeful that we're moving towards an abundant future where people live more from being rather than deficiency. And I think it's only a matter of time before, to my mind, there's just less crime, less wars, less conflict.
Yeah.
So
safer. The world is safer. Yeah.
So,
and I think hopefully AI will take away a lot of those mundane, time-consuming roles and give more time to thinking. And I'm optimistic. We'll continue on the same trajectory that we're on.
I have a thought that I've never shared publicly because it seems we'll see what you think about it, but it's a little bit harsh, which is like, would it be bad if all human life ceased to exist? Like, why is that bad?
Okay. How would it cease to exist? Just as in like, because maybe that matters. Is there suffering?
Let's say no.
So it's like the sun explodes or something and everything's vaporized.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's just, because birth rates are declining, right? So maybe there's just a slow, we die out.
Wow, that'd be very sad and scary.
Yeah, why? Can you explain?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'll just say that these are not deeply considered thoughts, so I might quickly.
Yeah, we'll explore together. There's no attacks.
Yeah, but I might quickly not agree with what I just said. You know what I mean?
Yeah, great.
Yeah. So my natural thoughts are like, life is something special.
Okay.
And consciousness is probably even more special.
Okay.
And something we should protect. I mean, if the universe is, it's just a thing, and consciousness exists within it, then, maybe helping consciousness prosper is kind of like an important objective. Why? That's really hard to.
I think, No, it's
Go
actually
ahead.
no. I don't want to. Actually, I don't want to.
Okay. Maybe because for me personally, like the most meaningful, most positive feeling moments is like it's a mental thing, right? When you have an experience, often with other people, other consciousnesses, sharing that together, they're probably like the best experiences I've ever had. No doubt they are. And so therefore, to somehow try to perpetuate more of that in the universe would be positive. And by the human beings becoming extinct, there'd be none of that. So that seems like a I know you could say like, well, there's nothing bad about not existing or whatever, but because we exist, maybe that's why it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because that'd be like not appreciating what you have in a way,
Oh. Yeah. It's interesting. I feel really uncomfortable with this question.
I like that. I like it because I think it's hitting the fundamentals so
exactly.
squarely that it's difficult to even.
Well, I mean, it's good that you weren't like, well, that's ridiculous. That's first of all.
Would I ever be like that?
No. But what I'm saying is, I can imagine one being like, how dare you ask that question?
Okay.
So that was good. Yeah, like, because let me just play devil's advocate, but I would just think that if there were no humans anymore, like, we had our time and that was really nice. Because, every other species, like, I think it's like 99.9% of species that have ever existed are now extinct.
Okay, all right. So you're saying humans gone, but they're still animals.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. I was thinking probably like all life.
No, not all life.
Yeah.
I just mean...
Yeah, still, what I said is pretty much relevant, though, to just humans as well.
Yeah, because my opinion is that we value human life because we're humans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And...
but what if we value consciousness?
Could be that. But consciousness will go on. I mean, it doesn't require your help.
Yeah. But it's hard to know, right? Firstly, just to even define what it is, but then secondly... to animals have it, and it seems like they do, but it's even harder to define, right?
For me, no, but it's just like, to me it seems obvious that consciousness is not human specific.
A bacteria conscious?
It's interesting. I think maybe just like you, I'll have some opinions that I'll go back on, but actually
Respect.
My opinion about consciousness is that it is the most fundamental thing. I don't think there's any matter. I don't think there's a subject-object distinction. I think there's only consciousness. The only thing that actually exists is consciousness.
That's cool. That's almost counter to what maybe the normal.
Oh, it's definitely counter.
Yeah.
Not allowed to say that in scientific conferences. Yeah. So that's my view.
Does that mean that everything is derived out of consciousness?
Yeah, I don't think it's derived though, because it makes it sound like there's something separate. I think it's just one consciousness. It's almost like think about a guitar string that can vibrate in several different modes, several different frequencies. So I think there's just one consciousness and then several different aspects of it. That you're one aspect of it, I'm one aspect of it, but we're all just one thing. That there's no difference between me and the couch. It's all just one thing.
I value you a bit more than this couch.
Yeah. So the way that I conceptualize this conversation is that it's the universe talking to itself.
Okay.
There's no separate thing. There's no separateness, but that they're just different aspects of the same fundamental underlying thing. That there's no matter out there, and then we're in here being conscious and having a conscious experience of matter. No, there's no need for a separate thing. There's just one thing. So
everyone shares one consciousness.
Yeah, there's no separateness as an illusion. This is weird to talk about.
So there's no free will as well?
There's no. I think free will is an illusion. Yeah.
nicely depressing thought, that one.
I know, I don't think about that one.
Yeah.
I just let that go. I also don't think about, is human life valuable? What happens if human life is... No, I just go, I'm going to continue to treat cancer to the best of my ability.
That's just the universal consciousness pushing you back into it.
Yeah. Those are my, I mean, and it, you know,
I appreciate your honesty, man.
well, I was going to say that the reason that I'm able to kind of go that deep and fundamental with questioning everything is because of this, like, very quote. Like, you don't get to say matter exists without taking the opposite point of view as seriously as you can. And to me, like, some of the best thinkers on this are not from the Western canon. Like, they're not from Western philosophy. They're from, like, I've been very influenced by Hinduism and Buddhism. So yeah, man, here's what I'll say also, just from a individual perspective on, like, death is like, okay, like, death is a part of life. It's not sad. It's not sad when you have to go to sleep, and I don't think it's sad when you don't exist anymore. As we talked about in the episode on death, it's like you might miss that person, but the fact that they died, I don't think should be surprising. You know, I mean, maybe that sounds unsympathetic, so I apologize if that sounds harsh, but maybe another way to think about it is, like, in the West, at least, we have, like, an association that death is bad. So then you don't get to have that point of view unless you've taken the opposite point of view equally seriously. The death is not bad, but merely a fact of the, you know, you're alive and then you die. It's not bad. So then if you think about it in those terms, it's like, to be alive's not good. It's just a fact. I'm just thinking these things through. I'm not making a claim that it's bad to be alive or that it's not good, but
yeah. I think it's from that life is valuable and we should protect it, because I think most people would agree with that, and therefore death is we try to avoid it where we can for people. Yeah,
it's funny because the phrase you said was like, because most people would believe that. I go, okay, cool, that means I need to analyze that.
Yeah.
It needs to be analyzed.
See the opposite point of view.
Yeah, just because, like, it's really easy and maybe lazy to adopt the common point of view.
Yeah.
The common point of view is nearly always wrong. You just look at history. What most people believe is incorrect. So then... you
want to give us an example?
Oh, most people believed before that the Earth was flat, that the Earth was the center of the universe.
But even 10,000 years from now, I think the belief that life is valuable and should be protected.
That's not a belief. That's a value judgment.
Okay.
That's a preference.
Okay.
That's a matter of taste.
Yeah, hopefully an enduring one.
Yeah, what I'm saying, yeah, sure. But what I'm saying is it's not a fact. It's a preference. And it's a totally egocentric preference. It's just because we are human.
Yeah.
You know, so the vegans would make, you know, or maybe not vegans, but animal activists would make a other argument about how all animal life, and then the Jainists would say, like, all life, you shouldn't step on plants because that's life.
You shouldn't eat plants?
Yeah, I don't even... Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Some of those people, like, you shouldn't damage bacteria and stuff. I don't really know how they survive.
How do you live then, mate? Yeah.
Yeah, they will even literally wear Muslim cloths over their mouths so that they don't breathe in bacteria.
Well, what do they eat, though?
I don't know. It's really interesting.
Drink that water, mate? Yes.
Yeah, it must be a very, very difficult way to live. But my point is that, yeah, so they've created a value system around what they think is valuable.
I shouldn't judge it until I...
Shouldn't judge it. But what I'm saying is...
That's funny, that's me being lazy, because... Sorry guys, I'm probably not going to spend the time to think into that.
Well, it's that's just you can't look into every belief.
Exactly. Yeah, that's another thing. Maybe what's important to you. You'll probably have thought deeper in that realm than others, and that's understandable.
Mm.
Yeah. But then probably a certain level of philosophy is important for everyone. In terms of defending philosophy, in the sense of if you're not going to spend time thinking about it, because you're thinking about other areas.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I think about that is just, everybody should probably think deeply about what they believe and how they want to live. You don't have to. Because, like, on the other hand, it's like there are some people who have, like, incredibly strict religious beliefs that live, good lives.
Yeah.
They're not, in fact, they're encouraged not to. Dogmatism is a positive word in those circles.
Yeah.
So, yeah. There's just lots of different ways to live good life.
It's probably like maybe you could always look at religion as like a good approximation. Like, I mean, I'm ignorant to all religions, but in general, if you follow their values, you're probably going to be a reasonable, good person.
Yeah, but then you have to like temper it as well, right? Because like you have to do a lot of mental gymnastics to remove some certain parts of the Bible.
Yeah.
And there are so many denominations, and I used to say to my previous partner that there are as many different denominations of Christianity as there are Christians, because everybody will have their own way of interpreting things and living in accordance with what they call Christianity. I guess for me, man, as you said, because we can't question every belief, because you'd be full-time job.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like I just want to question the ones that are predominant, that most people believe in.
Maybe that affect your life.
Right. That's another good point. It's like, is that a part of my personal story that I'm now living in accordance with tacitly? And then I'll go and question them. And for me, it's like they're all questionable. And after studying philosophy for a while, what I discovered is that, and I just pointed it out a couple of minutes ago, that what we take to be beliefs are matters of taste. They're simple preferences, and a lot of them are from egoistic perspectives. And even in the Here episode, one of the things that I said about going to that place is it gives you you can now begin to reconsider problems from the broadest possible perspective. And sometimes it's useful to think from the universe's perspective rather than my perspective. So it's interesting because a lot of it is just like I do that because it's fun and enjoyable. Like I find it really meaningful and enjoyable to try and solve like deep problems in healthcare. Even though it's egotistical because it's like that's a member of my species. But it's really fun to try and solve those problems, and it feels good. And so I guess maybe Aristotle talks about it. It's like you want to do what feels right for you, but you better make sure that what feels right is good.
Yeah, it applies to everything, even for the pedophile. We
talked about some dark shit on this episode, man.
Yeah.
I like it though.
Yeah. Whenever I have these thoughts, I just want to talk about it and not.
Yep.
To be authentic. Met some other thoughts I've had. understand was like maybe why is it that we think some people are defensive about when you question one of their fundamental beliefs? Often people just they take it as an attack.
So like, as I might have mentioned earlier, like I learned a lot from this. I think it was a TED talk on cognitive dissonance, and it made me realize that, and we've talked about this in previous podcasts, but it's like a lot of fundamental beliefs are there to kind of provide certainty in our lives. There's a lot of uncertainty. You can get hit by a car at any moment, and the future is uncertain. We don't know what's coming next, and so if there's any way of kind of artificially constructing some certainty around our lives, it'll be welcome. And so a lot of these fundamental beliefs that we have are kind of pillars that provide a certain level of apparent psychological stability. So if those then begin to get questioned, then your sense of stability crumbles a little bit. So it's better to simply ridicule that belief, to discount it, so that you can keep that stability.
Yeah. Funny, it makes me think keep that stability on the sand as opposed to moving to a stronger foundation. If it's superior. Yeah. That was made me think, man, of a business idea of like whatever the product is, it's just to give more certainty in whatever it is.
I was thinking about insurance as I was saying it. That's what it really is.
Yeah, exactly. But whatever it is, that would probably be a successful business. Yeah. It also makes me think of that quote. Don't know who it was by. Apologies, everyone. You can probably look it up there. With saying like the one of like the greatest weaknesses of the human mind is like the need for certainty. Yeah. Do you remember the full quote?
And you said it was like it was like deleterious to any creative endeavor.
Yeah. It's on my phone. I can look it up real quick.
Yes. I think you actually brought it up in a previous podcast.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And then you said the same. You were like, "No, I'm not going to get this 100% correct."
Oh, okay.
And sorry, guys, I don't know who this is from.
Okay. Yes. Don't worry, I'll do it in a few episodes again, guys.
Yes.
Yeah, no, but that I guess that's when the creative aspect came in. I was like, that's cool.
Yes.
Yeah. I value certainty as well. I know how it gives you the feeling of comfort, but yes, I really like being creative, and I know like when you're creating something, there's a lot of uncertainty, like art especially, but it's necessary. So yeah, so try not to shy away from it, embrace it.
Because it's interesting because I was speaking to someone recently about something like this where they kind of used the metaphor of a Horcrux, like in Harry Potter.
Of course.
And they were like, some of my Horcruxes are being shattered, and it's been difficult for them. And I just encouraged them to say, well, maybe what's on the other end when all of those Horcruxes are destroyed is liberation. Because what I have personally found in like challenging my most fundamental beliefs is it is a little bit uncomfortable in the beginning. And then you can go to a place of nihilism where it's like all beliefs are just matters of taste, which I think are it's pretty true, unfortunately. But then you can get to a place where it's like you have the courage to confront reality without the need for a story.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, you find that those fundamental beliefs are not necessary to function, and some of them have probably been holding you back. And there's a certain, so there's a certain level of stability in holding up these beliefs, but then there's also a certain level of burden that one takes on and being like, now I have to take on this, for instance, if you're on the right politically, so now I have to take on this canon of beliefs that sometimes you don't really believe in. And it's funny because like if you go on YouTube, like there are often like these videos where they'll go to a protest and they'll ask the people about just the most basic facts about what they're protesting, and they can't tell you. So I mean, that just goes to show that like a lot of the protesting is not it's not because you've thought through the positions, but rather it's like it's a very like tribalistic, primal, like, hey, this is what I believe in. Getting that energy out in some fashion. So you don't need that. You don't need that to function. And it means that it actually opens up a space for you to be more authentic, because you're not encumbered by, oh, well, actually I can't do that because then it contravenes that belief, and then if it contravenes that belief, then those people that believe in that won't be my friends anymore, or whatever. You're not hemmed in by beliefs you haven't thought through.
Yeah.
So it can be quite liberating, but it is difficult, because as I said, when I studied philosophy, a lot of those friends plunged into deep depression. Now, Kierkegaard would say that that's necessary, that, only a fool is not anxious. Okay, you should be anxious. And he would say that the anxiety is part of the wisdom, that it's your teacher. Anxiety is your teacher. So maybe you want to look at it in that way. But yeah, maybe it's through my meditative practice that I've seen that, you can just see what's here when there's no problem to solve. You can also see what's here when there's no stories. Not necessary. And I think the breakthrough is to find that it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just fine.
I feel like it's just a necessary step along the way. Yeah.
Necessary for what though?
Like in being liberated.
Yep.
And more free thinking, to have the uncomfortable realizations of uncertainty and things like that.
Yeah, like if there's any belief that you have where if somebody even questions it, you get emotional, you have an emotional attachment to the belief. For me, it's been really like, okay, let's look into that.
Yeah.
What's on the other side of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and often it's something that you had no control over, like you said. Like a lot of these beliefs were simply born into. Almost all of them. So, it's just happenstance.
Yeah. You can't take credit for anything. CVs are useless.
No.
Now I wanted to flip it.
Yeah.
And say, is there ever a good time and place for criticism? Well, we say criticism is almost the opposite of sympathy. Almost, sort of.
Well, I mean...
unconsidered, perhaps.
Well, it depends what you mean, though, because, like, we said before that, like, actually a kind of tactful way is to simply give the person more perspectives. I mean, it doesn't have to come from a critical, judgmental place, but just, hey, like, there's a broader perspective here.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, I guess it's how you define the
Yeah, exactly.
Word.
You're meaning, like, an attack?
Yeah, I think, yeah. Often it's associated with that. Disagreeing, so bam. But I often ask for critique.
You do, yeah.
Yeah.
But whenever I've given those in the past, it's always been like, this is just another perspective.
Yeah.
Not an attack, and it's like, let's just explore this together. So let's see though, like, because maybe like disciplining maybe there is a certain level of, discipline to a child that is necessary for them to avoid. We talked about how you have to give them enough stories that they don't like kill themselves or something really bad doesn't happen. So yeah, it's like if the child is about to cross a busy road, it's time for an assertive voice. I think sometimes the person needs to be like brought back acutely, and maybe that's where I would say, but I don't know if that's what you mean by criticism.
Yeah, I guess I was meaning more like aggressive criticism as opposed to tactful criticism, maybe. I
don't think there's a place for that. I mean, is there?
Well, mate, what you said then makes sense. If it's a child putting himself in danger,
Oh, okay, cool.
and you're aware of that.
But is that aggressive? Yeah, it's just yeah. Anyway, it might be
Assertive or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a place for assertiveness. You know, something's clearly wrong is going to happen, and there's a certain sense of urgency. I think it's appropriate to be assertive. But aggressive is like there's also hostility behind it. So then, yeah, okay. So another question is like, is there a place for hostility? And I think
hostility within disagreement, or just hostility in general.
Yeah, I think there probably is, right? Like,
yeah, because it maybe is it a stronger way to make someone question their thing? Often it can maybe go the other way.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that if you're hostile, you get met with hostility, so that they hold on to their beliefs more strongly.
Yeah.
I've never been successful in being hostile with a person and then being like, oh, you made a really good point there.
Yeah. But then to take it to the extreme, it's like that. It's like a war.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
And when two countries can't agree.
Yeah.
Then by force, one of them will overpower the other, and then sort of come to a peace, right, and an agreement.
But you know what's interesting is that even during war, you have to be tactful. Like there are war crimes. There's only certain ways that you're allowed to engage in war. So yeah, it's funny how we even try and put boundaries around that.
Mm-hmm. It's good.
Yeah, it's definitely good.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that we kind of also acknowledge that it's necessary in certain circumstances to go to war, or at least to defend yourself against aggressors. Yeah, but that's like when I said hostility, I thought of war immediately.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like on a personal level, is there a place for hostility? I don't know. I think for me, the worry is that like you just begin to act emotionally, and then you'll probably say something that you don't mean, or that you'll regret later.
Yeah. I was thinking maybe only. I think in general no, but perhaps again I was trying to think of the fringe cases.
Yep.
Maybe if someone's being malicious, or if they're mentally unwell.
Right.
I wonder in those cases if.
Yeah, you got to be quite stern.
Might be more. Because again, that's when like, if I feel like someone just doesn't care about whatever it is, and now they, so again, I think if they're malicious, that could be a reason why they don't care, or if they're mentally unwell, both those reasons, then maybe it's appropriate to meet it with that. Or is there another way it could be met? Because you can still be firm without being hostile, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, assertive without being aggressive.
Yeah.
What it like makes me think of is just how I find it a little like I find it sad the way we treat criminals. Like I know that it's maybe some things that you don't want to have sympathy towards, but it's like recidivism rates are very high. I mean, once you've been in that place where you're just like you're put into like just basically the worst environment, you're just surrounded by other criminals. It's not who you want to be surrounded. You should be probably surrounded by the opposite of that. If we were thinking about how we're going to make this person a good, healthy, functioning part of society, it's like, why would you put them with the other people that did bad stuff?
How would that be practical though to put them with?
Yeah, let's not think about that just for the moment.
Yeah.
But just theoretically, it's a bit sad that.
Yeah, it makes sense. Surround them with good role models.
Yeah, and I noticed to a certain extent that they try and do that. Like they have people come in to visit prisons and stuff. But again, it's like back to the point of like, you can't take credit. So those people often would just brought up in really bad circumstances, and then they feel that this is the way that they need to do things in order to survive. Then they're punished, and then
they're put into a tribe of like-minded people.
It just makes them even more fringe.
Yeah.
And then very difficult to reintegrate into society in a healthy way.
Yeah.
I understand that there's a practical thing here, but just first, I just want to...
Yeah, is there a better way?
I just want to acknowledge first how sad that state of affairs is. I mean, that's not good. Yeah, no, but it comes back around to this thing, I think, around like, is the hostility necessary? I mean, maybe it is necessary, but is it beneficial in the long run?
When you say the hostility, do you mean like from the guards to the prisoners kind of thing?
Yeah, like we're meeting these criminals with hostility, like they're getting punished. I'm not saying that's bad. I mean, maybe it's necessary to a certain extent, but...
it's meant to be as a deterrent, I think, right?
Yeah, exactly. But is it? No. Recidivism rates are very high.
But it could be more than... I mean, would there be more crime if prison was like actually not a pretty chill place to hang out?
Right.
Like maybe then more people would commit crimes.
So
I don't know.
Russell Brand has been like he's been an outspoken critic of like you shouldn't put people in jail for being drug addicts. And his thesis around that is that they're missing something deep, spiritual connection or love or belonging, and so then we punish those people. Man, that makes me really sad. So it's just the appropriate course of action is not to do what we're doing.
For all prisoners or just drug addicts?
I actually think that it's I'm not an expert on anything of this, but my feeling is that it's similarly motivated, that you feel that you're acting out of a sense of deficiency. There's something that you need that you're not getting, and you feel desperate to get it. So then you take steps that are going to land you somewhere really bad. It's not as if when you commit a crime, you don't know. You often know. So just thinking about that makes it even more sad, because it's like whatever they needed, they oftentimes willingly took that step knowing what the possible consequences were going to be. So what is that they need? Maybe going back to this idea that we great to create a society where that kind of stuff didn't happen, but anyway, maybe I'm being too wide-eyed and naive.
Never.
I also don't really know what to do about it.
Yeah.
I'm just expressing my dissatisfaction.
Yeah, it's very tricky.
Did you want to, unless you have another thing you wanted to say about that, I'll ask another question.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Do you have any beliefs that you wish were met with more sympathy?
Few thoughts coming up. One is like maybe like my idealistic like so often I'll have idealistic aspirations, and it's met with a lot of criticism.
Yep.
But that doesn't really bother me, because
I can see that.
I just see that as like, thanks for trying to be realistic.
Yep.
I'll consider those points and then decide anyway. But maybe for others it stifles them.
Right.
The other thing is like, sorry, what was the question again exactly?
Do you have any beliefs that you think that you wished more people would be sympathetic towards?
Yeah, so the other part of that was like, look, if I know certain people aren't going to be sympathetic, like I just won't associate with them. Do you know what I mean? In the right, if I don't think it's helpful, if I think it's detrimental,
Right.
so I'll maybe be selective with.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, you know, if I speaking about my ambitions with the general public, there's probably going to be a lot of people that are not sympathetic.
Yeah.
But I just wouldn't talk to them anyway, so it doesn't bother me, you know. And so whether they were more sympathetic or not doesn't really concern me. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But then big picture, it'd be great if specifically, I don't know. In general, we already said it'd be lovely if people were more sympathetic. Yeah. I don't know if that's a good answer.
Oh, it's a difficult question. I think, yeah, because I don't think I have a good answer to it either, but it's just like, in general, I just wish that people would adopt this perspective more. But now I'm sympathetic to people that don't have time.
Yeah.
They feel rushed, and there's a certain sense of urgency, and it is easier to just go along with strongly held beliefs because I don't have the time to think about all the other perspectives.
It's like you said, we can't think about everything. We've got to choose what we think about, and then for the rest have the belief. So maybe they just haven't. Yeah, it's very difficult. So then think, what do we think is important that everyone should think about, and then how to convey that to those people so that they also. Yeah. This is one reason I love film. It's a very powerful way to convey ideas, and it also very maybe like conducive to being considered. You know, as in often it's like, here's an idea, take it if you like it, don't if you don't like it. It's not like you're forcing an idea upon someone, like an attack might, you know. Maybe it's the most tactful way to convey ideas to people, in a way.
It's interesting, man, that you, especially because you responded with film, because what I was going to say, because when you said, like, what are the things that need to be conveyed? And then I was like, maybe nothing. Like, actually, deeper than that I thought about subtraction. Like, how do we get rid of false beliefs, I think, is more important. Because I think that there's a lot of different ways, there's a lot of different equally good ways of living, and a lot of different equally good ways of thinking through things and conceptualizing the world. So that more, I wish there was a process of subtraction. So yeah, rather than giving people a bunch of fundamental beliefs, I think more what I would want to give them is techniques to figure out how to identify false beliefs. And I really like that you brought up film, because something for me that I'm trying to get more into is like feeling rather than articulation. So meditation is like one of the first things that came to mind, is just to merely observe without the need for stories. Film and music and stuff like that are interesting complements to that, because you're often not you're often not explicit with what you want to say, which I think has value, actually.
Yeah. I also just thought, as you're saying that, I think one of the a really powerful way that a lot of people become more sympathetic is through film.
Oh yeah.
And any kind of narrative, maybe like fiction or books, or even music, but art, I guess, in general, where
Yeah.
It takes you to a imaginary place where you can,
Yeah.
you either think about what it is like to be that person, and then all these kind of situations that you maybe would never have considered.
Yeah.
You know, and to experience all that, certainly for me, it makes me more sympathetic.
Yeah.
So that's cool that ties in. I didn't even think about that before we started this.
I just had a thought that, like, it wouldn't surprise me if in our lifetimes we had the technology, like through augmented reality or virtual reality, to kind of feel what it feels like to be that protagonist, so that when you watch a movie, you are John Wick. And you feel what it feels like for an hour and a half to have those motivations where these fucking guys killed my dog or whatever. And then you feel that sense of urgency and motivation, and even the certain skills that he has. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if within our lifetimes we had that technology. And what an incredible way to convey a sense of empathy as well, to be like, you are now this person. Yeah. Then you could watch the same movie from, now you're the supporting character.
Yeah. I feel like I already learn enough from the film. I don't know if that would make a difference to me. It would be a different experience, but I don't know if I would. I mean, maybe to a slightly stronger degree, empathize rather than sympathize, perhaps, almost, with John. But
you would see it through his eyes rather than your eyes. It would be a totally different experience. You'd feel that bullet hitting your arm.
Yeah.
You know, and you'd feel tired when you run, rather than, you know, placidly watching.
Yeah. Interesting. So what would that be? You just sit there, but you're doing all these things. You don't have to try and do the things.
Yeah, I don't know how it would look, but
yeah. When you find the bad guys, are you the one punching him, or is it?
You could. I mean, it could be like a virtual reality game, like we have. Yeah. You know, this is. We're on the cusp of having this, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be a virtual reality game where you're doing the thing. But yeah, it could also be that you're just sitting there and then feeling all of these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, imagine. And then, imagine you could, you could program in and be like, I want to know what it feels like to be a Japanese woman working in a rice field in the 18th century.
That's pretty cool. I'm even thinking back to John Wick. What does it feel like to be the mafia gangster?
Yeah, exactly.
Killed his dog. And then imagine there's this whole part of the film you haven't seen where this guy... I don't know.
Then you feel his motivations of, like, he has to feed his family.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And now then you get to be scared of, like, John Wick's going to come and get me.
Yeah.
Previously you were John Wick. Yeah. You're the aggressor. Now you're the aggressee.
I think that'd be a really good thing for sympathy in general.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
For everyone, because then everyone can realize, oh, well, like, I can see why that guy did that.
Exactly.
Why that guy did that. You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So yeah. So
watch the movie from the point of view of the dog. Wouldn't last very long.
Yeah, I was going to say 7 minutes. Then you get to be the dog's ghost, like...
Yes! Yeah, nice.
I really wouldn't be surprised if we had that in our lifetimes, and...
That'd be really cool, yeah.
And that's the new way that we engage with things. Not movies, but feelies or something. Going to the feelies.
Or it's just you watch the film, but from which perspective do you want to watch the film?
Yeah.
Mate,
that's a money making.
Yeah. Already the title will be called Sympathy, and some kind of hectic, intense story. You
know, Lockie, we could build this.
Yeah.
Like, because you're a filmmaker and I'm a machine learning guy.
That's freaking cool. I love how complex it is. The story you'd need to be so well thought out, as all stories, but you know, because you wouldn't just. I mean, actually, you can do that always, where you think about all the characters, but then you just write the one narrative that we follow. But in this case, it would be like, well, we're going to follow all of them.
Yeah, games are getting to that point, hey, where, like, I know for the Harry Potter game, it's like every different decision you make is like a totally different outcome. So
nice.
it's
Keep an eye out, guys. Maybe we'll do
that.
Yes.
That'd be cool.
That'd be very cool.
And like, yeah, so that's cool technologically, but as you say, like, what an immense human, like, it would be part of your emotional education to do something like that, to know what it feels like to be, so for instance, the political philosopher John Rawls said that when you're coming up with the rules for a society, like let's say the laws by which society is governed, you should do so from behind what he called a veil of ignorance, which is where you don't know if you're rich, you don't know if you're white, you don't know if you're old, you don't know if you're male. So the laws of society are constructed from an entirely impartial point of view. Now that's quite difficult to do because we already know, like, it's difficult to be impartial because we're partial. We have that perspective. But how cool would it be if you could give these experiences to people, where they know what it would feel like to be whatever they want to be.
That's a cool way to think about society, because I did that with my friend for our business. Whenever because it's our business, like, it's hard to often know what's fair, like how much should you get paid for that, or what should the split be. And so our default thing now is like, all right, like, what would I be happy with, and then after you think about that, I mean, obviously you'd be happy with getting heaps of money, right? But then to flip it, what would I be happy to pay him, and if it doesn't work for him, am I happy to pay him that? Sorry, if me getting that doesn't work for him, can I pay that to him? And then, having those two perspectives helps us to very quickly always, like, make offers that work for us both. Anyway, it sounds like the same kind of thing where you think about the society from anyone's perspective, not just yours.
It'd be interesting as well, as like, if you could live like a day as, like, let's say, like, whoever you want to be. Let's say that you want to be Tom Cruise, and then you're like, this sucks.
That'd be really cool. I think that'd be very interesting and informative.
Like, I think that it would, like the person that you wish you were, their life is not that cracked up. It's not all that it's cracked up to be. You could just kind of experience that for a day or something like that. And then I
was even thinking that this morning, man. So Taylor Swift's in Sydney right now, and this is just what my mind was doing. But I was like, imagine if I bumped into her and, like, we had a chat. And I was like, well, it's funny because I wouldn't really have anything to say to her. Not that I'm not interested in talking to her, but I just don't really have anything to say. But then I was thinking, like, one thing we could talk about is, like, I think I have more freedom than you do.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
But then maybe she could say, well, that's the case right now, but I can stop in 2 years and then I'll have...
No, but she's still Taylor Swift.
Yeah. But what I mean is, like, she has to fulfill this tour. So she's probably committed for the next 6 to 12 months, and it's cool and fun, but, like, if she wants to randomly go do X, she probably can't do that.
No.
And so many people relying on her, and I was even thinking, even after the tour, if she wants to stop making music, there'd be so much pressure from so many people. So it'd make it really hard for her to not.
Yep.
And so I just thought, like, it's interesting because no doubt she's in an amazing position, must have an exciting life, and she's making music, which is awesome because it's creative. But she might be less free than I am in that, more.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it's interesting. It's interesting to talk about, and I hope she's happy with that. I hope that was an intentional choice.
She seems to be, but
she seems to be. Yeah.
There's ups and downs to any life, but
it's a hard thing that, hey, when you're super successful like that, it'd be hard to get out of. I don't think you'd think like that because you'd think you want to stay at the top, but if you wanted to do something completely different, there'd be so many people that would not want you to. They'd be trying to make you change or do more of the same. Yeah,
that's how I feel right now, in terms of my career. But even what I was going to say is, even if she was to stop, like, let's say that she had the courage to stop everything, she's still Taylor Swift. She can't go to a restaurant, she can't go to the beach, she can't go to the library. I mean,
for how long do you think?
Forever. I mean, she's Taylor Swift.
In 10 years, I reckon she probably.
You think? I don't.
Yeah, if she stopped everything now.
You reckon?
I think so. I don't know. I haven't studied that kind of stuff, but I don't know. After a certain amount of time, people get over it, right?
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, no, I think about that a lot. What I was actually just had that thought this morning, which is a thought that I've had a long time. I remember even having it as a kid, which is that the more you want, the more you need to give. If you want to be a millionaire or famous or whatever it is that you want, you have to give to get that thing. And oftentimes we don't think about, like, we give away our soul in a sense. Like,
I just thought for both those things, money and time, you give away. Sorry, money and fame, you give away your time.
Yeah, time and attention, man.
Often. Yeah.
You have to attend to things that you don't really care about, but you, like, oftentimes we don't. Like, there's a cost here that I think is often neglected, which is that you become something. Like, when you do that job, you're in middle management or whatever, you become a certain person. You edit out certain parts, certain aspects of your personality that would have been there natively. And then you go, well, it's still there. No, it disappears eventually. And so that's a cost that I don't think we think about enough. And, we'll talk about it properly, and one of the podcasts we'll dedicate to this topic. But, so one of the top regrets that people have on their deathbed is, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself rather than living up to the expectations of others. That's a top regret that people have on their deathbed. So it's like, that's a cost that we don't think about, that in order to become that thing, you now have to live in accordance with the expectations of others rather than listening to that deep, quiet inner voice of yours. That's a cost. That is a deep cost. And so if you want to become Tom Cruise or Taylor Swift or whatever, or Ariana Grande or whatever, like, there are going to be some sacrifices that need to be made on the personality side, that personally I'm not willing to make, because it's a common regret of people on their deathbed. I'm gonna try and avoid that regret as much as I possibly can, because what do you get in exchange for it? Like, for me, you get something material that's way less valuable than the immaterial thing. So it breaks my heart when I hear stories of these people that feel that they need to be stars or whatever for some reason. And then, just all the sacrifices that they need to make in order to get there. And it's, there's good and bad, like, cause, it's cool to become excellent at something, like, and it's very rewarding. But as we talked about earlier, it's like, if you're becoming excellent at something in order for external validation, it's often quite vapid. Yeah. So sympathy to Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I just thought, man, she must not have much time for herself. I mean, she probably does in a way, in the sense of she's so successful she can pay to have a lot of things taken care of, so she has time. But yeah, she's awesome. It's just something I was thinking about because she's here. Yeah, so.
It's funny, like, how you said, like, you can pay to get certain things done, because, like, for me, like, mate, I had such a nice day today where I woke up, there's nothing on the agenda except for this, and so I woke up whenever I wanted to, and then I just slowly was like, okay, I'm going to go for a little walk and get some sunlight, and then I'm going to do my laundry and wash the dishes. All of those mundane things I love. I love washing the dishes, and I love doing my laundry. And it's funny that those are the kinds of things that those people miss. Like, I know that
they miss, like, they want to do it.
Like
really?
Kris Jenner, like the Kardashian matriarch, and Kylie Jenner, they just one day was like, well, I want to go grocery shopping. And it was difficult for them because they kept getting recognized. But they were like, this is one of the things that I just want to do. I want to go out and buy a watermelon or buy whatever, and do grocery shopping. I want to do some normal things. And then they went and got their car washed. I just want to wash my car, you know. And we know, for instance, that people that live in elderly, like homes, whatever they're called, the people that take the least responsibility for that, like they ask for the most amount of help, are the people that die the quickest. So it's like if you don't use it, you lose it type of thing. And for me, I want to keep I want to get as little help as possible. For those things, I want to keep doing those things because I think it keeps you grounded. And so, like in my last place, I had a dishwasher. I never used it because I don't want to get to a place where I expect dishwashers.
Ego, mate. Yeah,
what's that?
You don't want to get too big an ego with a dishwasher.
It's not the ego. It's just I don't want to get to a place where I feel that I need a dishwasher, and therefore I'm willing to give up my time or attention or certain aspects of my personality to keep that level of lifestyle. So I just, even, dude, thanks to you, I never take the elevator. There's an elevator, but I never fucking take that thing. So I don't know why, but there's a certain level of like liberation from material things that I'm very grateful for, and I really enjoy doing those mundane things. But like an added benefit to that is that I'm not going to take that job that gives me a little bit more money, but requires me to abrogate my personality because I don't need a lot of stuff. So yeah, it'd be really cool if you could put this VR headset and have that experience and then be like, oh gosh, I wish that I could go outside and walk my dog without being accosted by people, or I now miss going to the grocery store and buying groceries.
Or even, I was thinking as like a career advisor tool, the kids like, I don't know what I want to do. You have like 5 generic jobs. Here's what it's going to be like. Or if they think they know what they want to do, then you can put them in there and see if they actually like it. And then maybe give them something the complete opposite just to see how they feel about that. That'd be pretty cool.
Although it's like, playing devil's advocate, it's like sometimes you don't enjoy it initially and then you grow into it, or that you need to develop as a person in order to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a limit to that technology, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they could still make a mistake and then change careers.
Yep.
I feel like but it might just be a more honest way to set expectations.
Okay. Yeah, what does it feel like to be to be like that?
Yeah. Because imagine Musk again doing it. If you took a day in his life, it'd probably be crazy discipline, working on really serious issues in one company, flying a jet straight to more work, non-stop, reasonably intense stuff, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, he said publicly, you don't want to be me.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that you used the word discipline there, and I don't know what you think about this, but it's not what I would use to describe Musk. He just seems to be compelled, like in the sense that I don't think he feels that he has a choice. He's got all these responsibilities that need to get done. In other words, I don't see that much conflict within him. I don't think that he's said publicly that, what am I going to do? Sit on the beach and drink Mai Tais?
Yeah.
Like, I think that is just not even enjoyable or appealing to him.
Yeah. So
that there's like a certain level of like maniacal focus that is non-negotiable.
I think that comes from discipline though, do you think?
No. I'm in the sense that I don't think that he's forcing himself to do it. I think that it's forcing him.
Because I imagine on the day-to-day he might want to just chill out some days, do certain things, but maybe, I guess if you practice discipline, it gets easier, to be disciplined in some way. Maybe not, but Well, I'd say easier than never being disciplined. Then it'll be quite hard to be disciplined. But if you're already disciplined, yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to have him on the podcast, but
yeah, good answer, mate.
But I don't see.
I think he's disciplined. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can agree to disagree.
Nice. Good. I like that. I should say I can see what you're saying.
Oh, I can see what you're saying too.
Yeah. I totally can.
Maybe we'll see how this question goes, but one more question to wrap things up.
Okay.
Like, why is being understood important to you?
I think because it makes me feel connected to another consciousness, and that's probably like the deepest feeling, I think. Yeah. And just like when I feel like I understand someone else as well. And then there's a depth to understanding as well, right? Like understanding a stranger. Well, that's okay, but I don't feel too much. But maybe if it's like a more specific thing with someone more fundamental to them, or maybe even like just more high level, then feeling I understand them or they understand me on that thing. There's something magical in that, in the feeling. Yeah, I kind of feel like that's what life is about. That. How about you?
That's nice sentiment, man. What I was just thinking about now is like, because when you said it was magical feeling, I also feel it's magical to just understanding things in general. I find really magical. When I was saying the other day that like when I go really deep into understanding something in science or maths or something, it feels almost devotional. Like I'm getting closer to God or the universe or divinity or something. I was listening to a podcast where this guy who said, as an atheist, the most devotional thing I can do is to understand the universe. And I get that. There's something wonderful in just understanding in general. It's magical. I think in a previous podcast I mentioned that like I'm skeptical of this, like maybe it's just a semantic thing, but like of understanding a person, because it's so complicated, and it's really difficult to understand yourself, so that understanding another person is even more challenging maybe. But I understand what you mean about how like you can get a sense of the person, and you can get like you can download patterns of how that person behaves and how that person thinks without necessarily getting everything. I also think like being seen, that you're the feeling of being seen by that person, fully seen, like, so if you have a stranger makes a judgment about you, it doesn't hit you as much because they don't know who you are. But when someone makes a comment or does something that you feel like, hey, they really understood where I'm coming from, or they're really thoughtful about the things that I need and want and the way that I see things. Like, yeah, that's a really, as you said, like that might be what life is all about.
Two thoughts quickly.
Yeah.
I feel so thankful to have you, my man, because I was just thinking just then, how sad would it be if I wanted to have this connection, but I couldn't find, like, I'm fortunate enough to have a few people, but imagine if, and because it could easily happen, I want to sit down and talk with someone deeply, but they're just not interested, and no one is interested. That would be very sad. So
That is a common state of affairs. They did a survey on this, especially amongst men. And the question was, how many people do you have in your life where you feel that you can talk to them about anything? And the most common answer was 0.
damn, that's crazy. Yeah, that's upsetting.
So that's a common state of affairs, actually.
The other thing I want to say before I forget it was when you were saying it's hard to even know ourselves, so
Yep.
why try and understand someone else? My thought on that is, yes, I understand, but maybe, I mean, the goal can be to understand everything about someone. That's maybe unrealistic and never going to happen.
Yeah.
But that can be your goal, because you can definitely understand someone better over like effort and time than without it. So I think you should put the effort in. And probably it's a skill and a practice as well to keep, developing that.
Yeah, I guess, so I guess where I'm more coming from is like, you can get a sense of the person, but also like for me, so the goal is no longer to understand the person, but simply to open a receptive vessel where I'm seriously listening. And because sometimes you feel that you have a sense of a person, like, oh, they like this thing, right? They might change their minds about that. Or they don't like this thing. Well, they might change their minds about that as well. So I always want to feel that the person is free to be whatever they want to be. I guess what I was getting at is like, I don't want there to be a sense that I understand you because I know who you are and you're not going to change.
Yeah.
More that I'm really listening. You're free to be whoever you want to be. And hopefully they feel that kind of level of listening. That's more what I mean by I understand what you're saying and I understand where you're coming from in this moment. But I don't understand you as a thing because you can change and you're free to be whoever you. It's almost like unconditional love. You're free to be whatever you need to be.
I love it, man. I almost think of that as like, I understand your spirit. And your thoughts right now are your thoughts right now. Your
Exactly.
values right now. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, your thoughts right now are your thoughts right now.
Because it's weird.
And I'm here. I'm here to hear them.
Yeah, I really like that. And then to understand the spirit, I feel like I do a little. For some people, I have an inkling.
Yeah, exactly. You get a sense of the person.
It's
right.
Impossible to probably explain.
Right.
Maybe that's the thing.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that it's a meeting of those two things, spirits or whatever.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about an unsympathetic person being like, sounds like a bunch of bullshit.
You can't critique it until you've done it, man. And then you definitely won't be critiquing it.
Yeah, that's right.
Damn, yeah.
Nice, man. I noticed you took some notes earlier. Is there anything final you wanted to say before we wrap up?
Oh, no. We've covered it. Thank you.
Good, man. Yeah, that was an important quote for me. Like, it made a huge impact on my life. Nice. Yeah, big.
When did you read it?
I was probably 24. Okay. 10 years ago.
So did that make you more sympathetic back then? How did it impact you?
I think I already had an inkling that was the appropriate thing to do. And then to be told by Bertrand Russell, who's a big figure in philosophy, that was important. And then in addition to that, it like gave me a process. And as I said, the first part is so difficult that you might not even get through the first part of just reading the philosopher so deeply that you know what it feels like to be a proponent of that school. Just that is so hard. And it just made me really like, I think it probably just gave me the permission to go very deeply into a lot of different things. And I'm not just talking about philosophy. As I said, I'm talking about religion. I'm talking about, what does it feel like to love video games?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'm going to try.
Yeah.
What does it feel like to not be critical of Tony Robbins? What does it feel like to talk seriously about a spirit? All of those things. What does it feel like to do that action that person did that annoyed me? What would it feel like to do that with good intentions? It really, so it was amazing for my philosophical education, that's for sure. But yeah, it just gave me, it just expanded my world and made me embrace what I have now, which is more like, I live less of a theory-laden life, that I want to, as much as possible, come in contact with the naked truth of it, without a story of if it's bad or if it's good, or if it's wrong, or if you're a bad person for liking that or thinking that. No, let's just observe the thing, and then I find that it just is so much richer than going into the perspective already thinking you know the answer.
Yeah, nice. Ties into humility to me as well, which we were talking about last time.
Yeah, it's probably why I feel that I'm not an expert at anything, just because I'm fully aware of how little I know by taking the subject that seriously. I mean,
is liberating thought, no one is an expert at anything.
Yeah, although it's like how I mean, it depends on how you'd want to define that. But that's how
I'm obviously being a bit joking around a bit. Like some people are obviously experts, but maybe that'd be a helpful way to stay humble, but also have some confidence in what you do know.
Yeah. No, I think that it kind of naturally happens with anybody that's exceptional at anything. I mean, they see all of their flaws, and I think it's very difficult to become great at anything without seeing the chasm between where you are and where you could be.
Yeah.
So the more things that you get exposed to, like I've exposed myself to a lot of things, so now I'm just fully aware of how inadequate I am, but not in a bad way. Like I don't feel bad about myself.
Yeah.
But just
you got to take a leap of faith for that. It's uncomfortable but ultimately after, kind of like how we were saying, you go through that depressing period of, realizations, but then it's worth it. You come out stronger and with a more accurate, honest view.
It's a good place to wrap up, my man. So everybody, thank you for your time and attention as always. And until next time, see what's here now when there's no problem to solve.